You will learn how to say things like I think, I believe. You will learn to say things, you learn to say complex sentences where you begin with giving your opinion. It can be about a presentation, it can be about a meeting, or it can be about a person that you are looking to hire. Then you will learn how the sentence structure changes. If you I think you should know this already because this is A2. So if you know it, it will be a revision. Otherwise, you will learn how the sentence structure changes with special conjunctions. Special conjunctions, they are special because, for example, you have conjunctions like und, oder, aber. They have no effect on the sentence structure. But then you have conjunctions like while, thus, the, and many more. And they have an effect of this on the sentence structure, so you will learn them. Then you will learn to compare things. So you will, let's say, if you want to say it is good, so you will say it is good, es ist gut. And then if you want to say it is better, you will say es ist besser. Then if you want to say it is the best, so you can say es ist das Beste, die Beste, or es ist am besten. Then you will learn how to say it is better than that, so it is better than this. Or you can say it is exactly as good or exactly as bad, or you can say not so good, not exactly as good as something else. You will learn to say things like this. Then we will do some exercises where you will get to evaluate your German. Then we will learn some new German words. Disclaimer, this is our 5th session, by the way. Let's start with the first topic, that is learn to give your opinion, or learn to say what you're feeling or what you think. So let's look at sentences like I think, comma, we should hire him. It is good that you are punctual. I find it interesting that one verb can have two meanings. I'm sure that I passed the exam. I'm sad, happy, confused, irritated, stressed because I did not pass the exam. Now if you notice here, each sentence is made up of two sentences and they are separated by a comma. And after the comma, some places you start with the subject. But for example, here you have the connector that, here as well that, here as well that. So the German counterpart to English, that is thus, DASS, and this will have an effect on the sentence. We will see that now. Let's say if you want to say I think we should hire him, so you will say ich denke, wir sollen ihn einstellen. This is obvious. So I is ich, think is denke, the verb is denken, and it has gone. So for ich it is denke, for du it is denkst, for er is sie and ihr it is denkt, for every other pronoun it is denken. Then you have we should hire him. So should, you can think of the Modalverb sollen. Then you have hire. So in German you can use many verbs to say hire, but the one I think is normally used as einstellen. This is a trennbare verb. That means you only conjugate the stellen part and not ein. It's usually at the last position, but here, because you are using a trennbare, here you're using a modal verb, you only conjugate the modal verb part. The other verb, you use it in its infinitive form. Then hire him. Him will be accusative, so ihn. Now the verb is here. If you learn this verb, learn it this way: jemanden. This is jemanden. JMDN is short form for jemanden. Okay, and jemanden, when you say jemanden, you will use one of these personal pronouns. So mich, dich, ihn, es, sie. Let's say if you learn some verb where it is written as like this: jemandem, and then the verb. So this JMDM means jemandem. Instead of n, it will be m, and it will be dative. Where will you see this? For example, you have this verb jemandem helfen. Okay, so here you will need the dative pronouns. Okay, then you see it is good, so s is good. Then you have, if there was no this that, so if it was like it is good, you are punctual, so you could say es ist gut, du bist pünktlich. But here if you see we have that. What effect is that is das in German has this verb which is normally just here, just at the second position, but because of that it must go to this position. Why so? That's the German language. Just accept it. Let's look at another example. I find it interesting. So this is basic. So you will say ich finde es interessant. Then you have das. Okay, you can have a comma. Das. Let's say if there was no das, then you only want to say one verb can have two meanings. So you would say ein Verb kann zwei Bedeutungen haben. Okay, kann. But because of das, the kann will instead of being here, it will be here. That's the rule you have to follow. Also, I don't think I should tell you this, but okay, just as a reminder, haben is in infinitive form because you have a modal verb. When you have a modal verb, the other verb, it's always in its infinitive form. You only conjugate the modal verb. Then, I am sure that I passed the exam. I'm sure you can say ich bin sicher. Some people also say ich bin mir sicher, but ich bin mir sicher is also fine. That, das. If there was no that, if you want to say I passed the exam, then it will be ich bestehe die Prüfung. But because you have that, the bestehe part, the verb, conjugated verb, goes to the last position. Let's look at the next example. I am sure, again, ich bin sicher or ich bin mir sicher. That, das. If I want to say I can pass the exam, so it's the same sentence. Instead of saying I pass the exam, it will be I can pass the exam. So now you will use the modal verb can. You use the modal verb can. So kann, modal verb, it will be können. It should be conjugated for I, that is ich. So ich kann. Okay. If there was no das, it would be here. But because you have das, this must go here. So ich bin mir sicher, dass ich die Prüfung bestehen kann. Notice here, bestehen was conjugated. Here it is not, because here it was the only verb in the sentence. Here you have the modal verb. So you conjugate the modal verb. You use the other verb in its infinitive form. Last example. This slide looks complicated, but it is not if you just follow what I'm saying. So I am sad. So ich bin traurig. Happy, froh, confused, verwirrt, irritiert, stressed, get stressed. Because, so you can use while or da. I know you are thinking da usually means there. So let's say you are walking down the door and you know the locality quite well, and someone comes to you and asks, hey, is there a cafeteria nearby? And you just point in that direction and say, yeah, there, So there it's right, you can say da. But here da also has another meaning. Here it is, you can think it of as because or while. Okay. Having said that, there are some subtle differences between when to use da and when to use while. But now you can just use them interchangeably. But later you will learn what are the subtle differences. Then you have I am sad because. So instead of because, you can either use while or da. Let's say if there was no because, if it was I did not pass the exam, then you would write ich habe die Prüfung nicht bestanden. You would use Partizip II of bestehen, that will be bestanden. But because you have while or da, this habe, instead of being here between ich and die Prüfung, moves to the last position. Okay? Then this is just an example. So let's say if you want to give your opinion or if you want to say how you feel about something. So I find or I found. So let's say if you want to say important, wichtig, gut, bad, schlecht, relevant. So this is relevant in English. The spelling is the same in German, but you pronounce this as relevant. Irrelevant, hilfreich, interessant, nützlich, gefährlich, überall, nirgendwo. Now I told you that when you talk about past, so there are two ways. One is Präteritum, other one is Partizip II. I told you Präteritum is not that commonly used when you're speaking in spoken German. Partizip II is more common, but there are exceptions. For example, sometimes you say, right, it's like because you use the verb find, I find, I found, quite common. So in German also, in spoken German, you will use the Präteritum So Präteritum of finden instead of Partizip II. You can also say ich habe gefunden, but normally if you are just saying how you feel about something, you will say ich fand, I found it bad, I found it good. You go to a Christmas party of your company and one colleague does not go, and then he calls you back and says, hey, how was the dinner? Right? And then you will say, I found it tasty, ich fand es lecker. Or I found it just normal, ich fand es ganz normal. Then you can use participle zwei, but it's more common to use Präteritum. So that means you should learn the conjugation table for finden in presence and in Präteritum. Okay, ich fand es fand. It's not that difficult to remember. Also, what you should remember, so also for the verb sein, you should remember the conjugation table in present and in Präteritum. Also for the verb glauben, remember its conjugation table for presence and for Präteritum. There can be other verbs, but these three should be enough for now. Let's look at some more. So you saw, right, what happens when you have das in the sentence. So just like das, you can also have while, you can have da, wenn, trotzdem, deswegen, daher. Daher is, and deswegen, you can think of them as a consequence, like hence, therefore, as a result. Of course, there are subtle differences, but for now, you can just think of them when you want to give a consequence. Then trotzdem is even though. Wenn is, don't think it of as when in English, no, that is one. This when is usually used to give a condition. If you really want to think of an English counterpart, think of if, but that is not suggested. But when, it's usually when you are giving a condition. Okay, let's look at the grammar. So let's say, so normally we say the sentence before the comma is Hauptsatz, the sentence after the comma is Nebensatz, and you have a connector Hauptsatz. So this, let's say you're only using a normal verb. By normal verb I mean it's not a trennbare verb, and you only use one verb, not you're not using Modalverb as well. So at the second position you will have the verb, then just before or after the verb you will have the subject, and you can have an object after that or an adjective. How will the sentence change in Nebensatz? Subject, verb moves to the last position, of course conjugated, and just here you will have object. How will this look like when you have a modal verb and you have a normal or trennbare verb? Okay, the beauty is when you are using a modal verb, your life becomes easier. So you will use subject, second position you will conjugate the modal verb, then you might have other stuff in between, for example object. At the last position you will have the verb. Now I only say verb, I don't say normal verb or trennbare verb, because it doesn't make any difference, because you will not be separating the prefix, right? So you will be using it its infinitive form. How does this look like when you have this sentence is in Nebensatz? So subject, the modal verb which was over here will move to the last position. Okay, it should be here, but because it is after das, it will be over here. Then let's say if you have just one verb without modal verb, only one verb, but you are using trennbare verb. So how will this look like in Hauptsatz? Subject, prefix at the last position, object just before that, and then here second position you will conjugate the rest of the verb. How will this look like in Nebensatz? Subject, object, prefix, verb. There is some space, but I mean when you're writing there will not be that. Let's say if so you will not write the prefix and the conjugated part of the verb separate from each other. Normally we just write them together. Okay, we will do exercises later. Then let's look at how you can compare stuff in German. So let's say if you want to say, let's say for your company, your boss wants you to recruit some new guys and you have to take their interviews, and after that you and your colleague are deciding upon them. You and let's say two more other colleagues, you are deciding, you're talking about the candidates, right? So there are three candidates, A, B and C, and you say so you want to say A is good, B is better, but C is best, right? So you can say it like this: Kandidat A ist gut, Kandidat B ist besser, Kandidat C ist am besten. Then let's say your colleague says, he thinks or she thinks that candidate A is as good as candidate B. So she or he can say Kandidat A ist so gut wie Kandidat B. Don't start translating V as how now in your head. Just accept it. So when you want to say as good, You want to say as good as, you say so gut wie. Now someone else wants to say no, candidate A is not as good as candidate B, so you just add the nicht before it, so. Then but the before guy, the still is wants, like he still wants to stick to his opinion or evaluation, so he will say again, Kandidat A ist genauso gut wie Kandidat B. Okay, here genau and so there can be space in between, or you can just write them together. Genauso means exactly as good. Okay, genauso is exactly as good as the candidate B or Kandidat B. Now, but this guy is like, Kandidat A is nicht genauso gut wie Kandidat B, so not as good as, not exactly as good as. But then but then there's another guy who says Kandidat A ist besser als Kandidat B. You know, he or she thinks that A is better than B. Then someone else says nicht besser, so Kandidat A ist nicht besser als Kandidat B. I hope you get the idea what I'm trying to say over here. Similarly, you can take any adjective, for example, good, better, best. You can take, for example, active. So you have the English word active, and the German counterpart is aktiv. And so this is Grundform, basic form. You want to say someone is active, so jemand ist aktiv. Then someone also say he is activer, like more active, so you will say aktiver. Then the superlative form will be am aktivsten. Einfach. Similarly, you can create your own table, and idea is that, I mean, for example, I don't think I have ever said this, like saying someone is cute, cuter, or the cutest. So niedlich means cute. Idea is that think about your life, the adjectives that you use in your professional and social life, and write down Grundform, comparative, and superlative of these adjectives. For example, berühmt, berühmter, am berühmtesten, ruhig or ruhig, ruhig or ruhig, ruhiger or ruhiger, then am ruhigsten, then wichtig, wichtiger, am wichtigsten, schön, schöner, am schönsten, reich, reicher, am reichen, günstig, günstiger, am günstigsten, billig, billiger or billig, billiger, or am billigsten. The difference between, billig and günstig is very subtle. So billig normally means cheap, günstig means inexpensive. They both are not expensive, but when you say billig, it sounds, you want to say something is cheap. When you say günstig, you mean to say it is not, it is, you're not saying it is cheap, you're saying it is inexpensive. That's why supermarkets never say something is billig, right? They normally say es ist günstig, because if they will say billig, it may sound like that you are buying something cheap. All right, let's do some exercises. Let's see if you have already. So this was homework for you. If you have not done this, we will do it together. How do you say I have feelings? So you can say ich habe Gefühle. Okay, so ich haben is the verb, conjugated for is ich habe Gefühle. Next is we work in a group. So we will be wir, work is arbeiten, in will be in, not always, but here it will be in. Group is Gruppe. What comes after in over here must be in dative. So wir arbeiten in, it will be dative in einer Gruppe, because Gruppe is feminine. I choose a picture. How you can write this? So let's see. There are two verbs that you can use. You can use wählen or you can use auswählen. They both mean the same, but the context is more important. So when you can use wählen, when you have unlimited options, okay, to choose from. You use auswählen when you have limited options to choose from. Okay, if you use wählen instead of auswählen, or the other way around, no one is going to point out your mistake. It's just that this will differentiate you from a native speaker and someone who just learned German. Okay, so please try to, when you learn a verb, see if you can say the same thing with a different verb, and what the subtle differences are. Then either kid is in the picture. Now you might think of, so das kid, I will say das Kind. Is, I will say ist. The picture, it will be das Bild, and I will say in, but you will be wrong. Instead of in, it will be auf. Why that is so? That's how German language is. So das Kind ist auf, preposition, and this must be dative, auf dem Bild. I see a man in the picture, but I think now you will be more careful. So instead here in the picture, you will say auf and not in. So ich sehe einen because accusative, man is because it's einen because man is masculine, and so ein Mann becomes einen Mann auf dem Bild. What do you see in the picture? This should be obvious. I'll just give you the answer. Was siehst du auf dem Bild? It can also be was sehen Sie auf dem Bild or was sieht ihr auf dem Bild, because I mean English doesn't tell you, right, what this you means. One person, more than one person, are you being formal, informal, and many other things. How do you say what is he doing? It should be obvious. Was macht er? What is he singing? Was singt er? What are the people doing? Was machen die Leute, die Personen? And I got many other answers from you. For example, Menschen. Yeah, I forgot the other answers, but you can say many, you can use many nouns for the people. Then I celebrate. How do you say celebrate? Ich feiere. The reason for giving this example is that most of you celebrate something or the other, right? And you like to talk about it, or let's say you get to know someone from a different culture, and normally the conversations around what do you celebrate, right? So you should say I celebrate, then you want to say I celebrate this festival. Ich feiere dieses Fest, okay? If you know what dieses is, this is a demonstrative article. You can say das festival, but here because you are using this, so you are pointing or you are pinpointing to something, you're saying ich feiere dieses Fest. I celebrate the festival ABC. You're just saying which name of the festival. What do you celebrate? Was feierst du? Again, these examples are just meant to help you in using one verb and trying to write it in different way. First as a sentence, then as a question, then what kind of a question? Yes or no kind of question, or W kind of question. So what are you celebrating? Was feierst du? So in English we have simple present tense, and then we have also simple continuous present tense. In German there is nothing like that. You just have present tense. So what do you celebrate? What are you celebrating? What are you doing? What do you do? They both are just present tense in German. So was feierst du? How do you celebrate? So wie feierst du? She is showing the photos. How will you say showing? Zeigen is the verb. Sie zeigt die Bilder. You can also use photos. So when I say photos, so das Foto, the photos. She is showing the photos to me. So mir, sie zeigt mir die Bilder, or the photos. She is showing me the photos. It's still the same. Sie zeigt mir die Bilder. I invite you. Ich lade dich ein. Idea is that you learn to use streitbare verb. Who is inviting or who invites? Wer lädt ein? The idea is that you get to pronounce this one, lädt ein. Who is inviting you? The same thing. Who is inviting you? So wer lädt dich ein? Please write the sentence for, when I say you, you can think of, again, there are 4 scenarios for you: singular, plural, then also formal, informal. Then replace you with she, he, them, and then you can write the German counterparts. Who is inviting me? Wer lädt mich ein? How does one celebrate? So when I say one, here in German you can say man. This is different from this man. Okay. The gift is for you, her, him, me. So here you should learn to use the preposition for, but in German that will be few. So gift is Geschenk, neutral, so das Geschenk is few. There should be 2 points over here, few. Sie, dich, sie, small as sie, ihn, mich. So this one, I hope you know, this is you, singular, formal. This one is singular, you, but informal, dich. This gift, so demonstrative article, so dieses Geschenk. Okay, I hope you know this because we covered this last time. I am buying the kettle. When I say kettle, I mean the water boiler. Okay. So it will be ich kaufe den Wasserkocher, because Akkusative, Wasserkocher is masculine. Then you have I can buy the bottle, so just write the sentence with Modalverb. So ich kann den Wasserkocher kaufen, write the sentence again for you, he, she, it, they, and other pronouns. I want to buy the kettle. So ich will den Wasserkocher kaufen. You're listening these examples because last time you learned Modalverben, so you're just now you're using them. Please understand this will is not the German will, where you say what you are going to do. This is want, okay, or a strong wish. You can also say, instead of ich will den Wasserkocher kaufen, it should be are. This is a spelling mistake. You can also say ich möchte den Wasserkocher kaufen, okay? Then you have I should buy the kettle. So how can you say this? Ich, instead of kann, it should be soll den Wasserkocher kaufen. I am allowed to travel. So when I told you allowed permission, when you see this, you should think of the verb dürfen. So ich darf reisen. See, you only conjugate the modal verb. You don't conjugate the reisen, you use it in its infinitive form. I have to buy the kettle. I don't know why, but you have to. So ich muss den Wasserkocher kaufen. Or it can also be, instead of have to, it can be I must. Still the sentence will remain the same. Ich muss den Wasserkocher kaufen. He is whispering. Now, I am not sure if you will, I'm almost sure that you will not know the verb how to say whispering. But the idea of this homework is that you should think. I mean, we always whisper, right? You're like, if you're in an office meeting or you're talking to in a train and you don't want others to hear what you're talking about. It's a jammed packed train and you want to like just talk to the person by whispering, or you want to whisper something to your friend, something funny. Then how do you say it? So it should bother you. You don't know the German word for whisper, to whisper. So it is flüstert. There can be other verbs also, this meaning the same thing, but I use flüstert. He was whispering. So again, you can use Präteritum or Partizip II. I decided to use Präteritum, flüsterte, but if you want to use Partizip II, it will be, of course, capital ER, hat, geflüstert. The game begins. How do you say this? Das Spiel beginnt, or das Spiel started, or das Spiel fängt an. Again, different ways to say the same thing. The game has started. How will you say this? Das Spiel hat begonnen. Okay, hat is, so haben is the helping verb over here. You conjugated it for third party singular, so hat. Begonnen is participle II of the verb beginnen. Again, instead of begonnen, you can also use angefangen or gestartet. They are angefangen is participle II of anfangen, then gestartet is participle II of starten. Then last exercise. I should do homework because I want to learn German, which is very true for all of you. So how do you write this? So this is how you write. So should will be sollen, do will be machen. So ich soll Hausaufgaben machen, weil, because ich Deutsch lernen will. Notice the position of will, it is at the last, okay? Here soll was at the second position because this is Hauptsatz and this one is Nebensatz. Thank you very much for listening.